Okay, what's going on, guys? NoGuides here. Welcome back to another video. And today's video, we're going to go over TEKKZ's 4-4-2 custom tactics that he did use in the Pro Open. I'm going to go through his tactics. This is the one that he uploaded. This is the code, and this is the one that he gave to FC Pro. This is probably the one that he's using in the Pro event. Let's go through it. So he does have the typical 4-4-2, which is arguably one of the best formations out of the game. Counter, which I'm using all the time. And very interesting, got a depth of 50. I was thinking, is that a glitch? But no, it actually has a depth of 50. Now, for the player roles, very interesting. You've got advanced forward on both, inside forward balance for both the left mid, right mid, playmaker, center mid on roaming, and a deep line playmaker, which I've actually not used this combination. I'm not really a big fan of the playmaking roaming this year, but sometimes the deep position I don't really like. And then you got the defenders and the fullbacks. So it's basically a 4-4-2. When you're attacking, it's basically a 4-4-2 as well. And if I'm not mistaken, he did play a lot of 4-2-2s and 4-4-2s in the past in the history. So let's go through a gameplay example using these tactics. Okay, let's go over these now. To be honest, 4-4-2s are typically very good formations, but I would say the lower skilled you are, the more difficult it is to place formation. The main thing is that you lack that central player, that central cam. And you can see like Aitana, she's drifting to the left-hand side. Sometimes you could argue when you're trying to improve in the game, it's better to have a rigid formation where you know the structure. That way you know where your central player is. More specific formations where you know roughly where the players are and you can be patient. It's a bit more easier to play once your skill level improves. The thing is with a 4-4-2, look, naturally speaking, it's actually pretty easy to defend with a 4-4-2 if you know what you're doing. The thing is with a build-up play, now what's very interesting here is you have the playmaker center mid on roaming. Now, I've got the plus variation, so in theory, I should have won the better players. Interesting how she picks up the left-hand side. Now I see how TEKKZ plays as well. Don't forget, there's a lot of L1 triangles, a lot of play, a lot of like when the ball comes like this, a lot of like first time L1 triangles. You might have seen that video I explained, that pro example, and he does a lot of power shots as well. So of course this is a team that he uses. He does use the Valverdes, I think, as well, if I'm not mistaken. Give the ball away. Looking at my computer, and that is one thing that you don't do, is don't look at your computer. Of course, you should be never doing that inside a game. But what's interesting is I've never used the combination, to be honest, of the deep line playmaker combos. Let's just see how it is. So you can see we've got Tonali on that deep line playmaker. Now, maybe this is used for the L1 triangle. So a lot of the pros, what they're doing is they're getting the ball, for example, like that, and then they're pinging the ball with an L1 triangle, something like that, and that should be a goal. But of course, no, she just completely missed. So that's something that's very, very interesting, is the specific use case of why that plays a deep line playmaker. Maybe that's sitting down a bit more reserved deliberately, but also where they're positioned. If you go all the way to the sideline, like I'll show you, for example, like here, roughly in this area, is that you can use them to do like that, and then you can do like the L1 triangle, then you can header the ball downwards, or if you do go through, you can do that 1-2 and behind, and they're still there to defend. So this is more of a specific use case formation. Maybe I'm probably going to say I'd probably change again here, just for the average player, putting at least one on the center mid on holding here. That way you got a bit of a balance. But you know, if you are going to use that player for those L1 triangles, you could be beneficial. What's interesting here is you can see the center mid, Bonmati, she's actually covering the space. You see that? She's actually going back and covering the space. Look how far deep she came. And don't forget, we just go over here and just show you again. If we go ahead and pause the game for you and show you, look, Bonmati, she's basically a center mid on roaming. It's a bit of a weird one, because I'm just trying to think here, because obviously we're a deep line playmaker. They're basically there, they're reserved, they sit a bit deeper. With the roaming, they're kind of everywhere. So maybe more of a box-to-box player, someone like Valverde, would be better in this situation. It's actually not a bad idea. I mean, I personally don't like the roaming too much. The reason why, this is more of just me of a use case, is that I just like a player to be where they are. If I want to trigger that player, I'm always better off triggering it myself. But I've not used this two combinations before. And of course, typical 1-2 fashion. And you can see that that's Bonmati coming in, and she's in a position to then take the shot, which unfortunately got taken a bit too long on Tonali. And although not in a holding role, it's still reserved enough to bring CDM backward. That's one thing you got to bear in mind, though. When you're using this formation, you have to know when to control that player and when to run back with it. That's the only thing I would say from a balance point of view is knowing when to bring that player back. I knew she was going to lose the header there. But you see, for example, I don't want her to be in this position. Now, look, maybe you might want that. So if you're more of a possession-based player, do I want Bon Mati to be really coming inside out? Maybe it's a bit different because TEKKZ is a coach, so maybe there's something specific that he wants, specific movement. Or maybe, for example, what you can see when I move with Batcher, you see how she covers for that role? Then she moves into the space. You see that? So unless there's a specific use case, but I like her when she's here. You see that in these situations here? Maybe TEKKZ does something like a first time. We've seen him do the first time power shots as well. I see him sometimes in some of the Pro Open games as well. He's done the same thing. And he's used Drogba, I think, on his main account. If I'm not mistaken, when he was using him for the power shot. Ronaldo at one time. I think I was watching a game, him versus Stoke something. I was analysing that some time ago. Typical left mid, right mid. Probably inside forward, probably the best that you can do. The benefit of the inside forward as well is, look, I'll show you something. The real benefit of the inside forward is, look, at least they come back. They don't come back to help you like a surprising amount. Like you can see, look at my left mid and right mid. They're not coming back all the way, but they're coming close by where I can bring them back and they're ready to spring their counterattacks. That's the benefit. The problem is inside forward, well, the problem with the 4-2-2-2 is that the 4-2-2-2, the cams in a 4-2-2-2, have you tried Shadow Strike or Playmaker? They just don't come back. So although a 4-2-2-2 is a more advanced formation to use, maybe you could argue a formation like this may be better because a left mid and right mid provide more of a defensive support. So maybe you could make the argument, of course, depending on your skill level. But the 4-2-2-2 on, like, you know, I can imagine on the pro scene being very, very attacking, almost too attacking. But as I said, the benefit is you do have those CDMs there. It's not to say Aitana's not in that position. She's actually pretty good where she is, actually, to be fair. Just not too much of a fan of the roaming functionality. I mean, normally I'm doing a 1-2 like this, pushing that centre mid forward myself anyway. And someone like a Patrick Haro, which I tried to emulate at half time, would be, for example, in this role. And just by pinging those passes. And then, for example, when you're in this situation, is just trying to finish those shots. Good tactical foul from my opponent. Red card! I've never seen that. Was that a straight red? I thought it was... Oh, second yellow, I was going to say. I thought it was basically impossible to get a straight red. I was like, what? This is probably not going to go in. Yeah, this is definitely not going to go in. I was like, what's going on there? That was a terrible free kick for me. I normally like to go with the free kick takers, always with the most amount of power. Nice play from my opponent, and what a goal that is. Ooh, just a bit unlucky on the offside there. The goalkeeper, catch it. Don't mess it up, please. Okay, we go into the second half. So yeah, so what's interesting, as I mentioned to you here, is that I always use the fullbacks, although they're on defend. I'm pretty sure TEKKZ sends them forward as well. Don't forget. So you may have to bear some of that in mind. Don't forget, when you're looking at a lot of pro players' tactics, they are also very basic. There's nothing really extravagant. One thing I would say here is, let's say we went for like something like this. Let's say we went with like, what I'm going to do is, we have Guijarro. I put Sam Kerr because she'll be the plus variation. They have the inside forwards. I will try it like that for the second half. Really, counter does really help. Like, if you're ever struggling with any formations, by the way, a quick tip is just change to counter for the build-up play. Very effective. 4-4-2s and 4-2-2s are really some of my favorite formations. I'm probably going to be a bit biased because all form of 4-4-2s, I really love them. They are very high skilled formation to play. Like, especially if you know how to press with a 4-4-2, you can really get the ball. Got a bit unlucky there. But if you know how to press, you can really get the ball there. We just want to really focus on the movement per se. But like something like this, you know, like doing that 1-2 and then trying to build the ball in. Bit of offside there, bit unlucky. But something like that can be very useful. Again, just being wild as possible. And you can see, like, being aggressive as possible. Closing down all the lanes. Bit unlucky there. Just trying something there. Kiaro coming back. The player lock there. It's more becoming unfair now because I can't really judge it too much on this segment. I'm really just looking at the movement now. The two center mids combos are not used before, which is very, very interesting. I'm not too sure about the ITAR. I mean, me personally, I just don't like the roaming. I think in some use cases, for example, like down the wing, or if you play a specific style, that's very bad. Driven cross. Did not expect that to go there. And of course, look, you can always bring back the left mid and right mid manually. Sure, to get the ball with teammate container. Lob, please. Thank you. The one thing that really does help this is that because you have, like, on the build-up play, you have those players. Ooh, that was a close one. What is actually very interesting, because you have those two players together, at least, for example, when you're on this situation and then you're trying to build up, the good thing is you have that 2v2 system there I'm trying to talk about. Nice goal. So the good thing is you do have that 2v2, you have those two center mids, and of course if you want to trigger them forward manually, you always can do. But it's only when you really go like into this like final third kind of area, that's when the deep line playmaker drops back a little bit, which kind of gives you that protection as well. And then you got that center mid on roaming. Maybe we should give this win away here, to be honest. It would be unfair, I think, with someone one man down, to really take the mick here. So we'll just carry on spamming the power shots and whatever we need to do here. Now what's happening a lot on the pro scene is stuff like this. Getting the ball, we'll score an own goal. If we score this, we'll score an own goal. Actually, we'll let my opponent go through. I don't want to. I always try not to just run out my centre backs here. Let's have probably let these Division 4 players play to start bringing out the goalkeeper. Maybe even lower, but we'll go over that goal towards the end, actually. Nice play over there. Just going to run back. What's interesting, normally when the season resets as well, a lot of these players, they're not very top tier players, but they just grind a lot when the game comes out, and that's why they technically reached up like a division. I think it's on Division 3 or whatever this is on, but it's enough for them to put. I mean, after the thing, it's enough for them. Maybe they're Division 4 player, but they got in Division 3 because the way the system is. Actually, something that's very, very interesting. Kind of a theory that I have on mine. We'll bring this account back into Division 1. That's probably one of the biggest downsides is playing on so many accounts. It can be very, very hard to keep up. We're going to miss this deliberately. Trying my best to hold back there. But what you're seeing a lot, and if you're part of the Patreon series, you can see this in more detail, is on the pro scene. You can actually very much, even on the regular scene, to be honest, the first time L1 triangles are very, very effective. You might have seen them before. So I'm just going to trigger, for example, a player like this. And look. Oh, I messed that one up. Nice bomb, Matty. Bit unlucky there. Typical 4-4-2 here. Little bit of a nil guy's top tip like that. I should have probably controlled the ball, but you could see, for example, of where it can be used. Can I have the free kick, please, ref? What are you doing? Thank you very much. But I'm just going to recycle the ball here because something actually I want to do. It's not going to work out. Thank God it did. Sometimes that glitches out like in the olden days. But for example, what you could do, for example, is do like a 1-2. Then all it is Patrick Garo's job is to time it and then get the header, for example, like that, or the shot. So using that deep line playmaker in those specific use cases is a bit different. But to be honest, you could do the same with a holding CDM. And that is why I'm going to tell you a change that I would make for the average player here. Because I do think defensively is where you'd probably struggle with this formation. Especially up against a more competent player, with all due respect to my opponent, of course. And that is where you would probably struggle more than if you were to play, for example, an average person. And happy wins to my opponent. Fingers crossed they do well. So let's go now over some analysis. Okay, so TEKKZ tactic. What would I say about it? Look, I love the 4-4-2. All version of 4-4-2s, 4-2-2s are some of my favorites, but they're also very high level formations. What I would say is, look, to be honest, I actually really agree with most things here. Count is what I use most of the time. If this wasn't on count, I would have changed it. And the defensive approach, to be honest, on 50 is okay. You can always reduce this down to 45. The only thing that I would probably say is the rest of the team is perfect. It's actually quite similar to the 4-4-2s I would use. The only thing I would say is maybe just putting this player as a holding. And the reason why, as I say to you, look, TEKKZ is a different kind of player, different gravy. They're moving at such incremental perfection. They know what they're doing. If they make a mistake or they can see the goal, they know what they've done wrong, or the opponent's played a very good play. It's not like they made a basic mistake like losing the ball with your defender. What I would say is, although you have a back four in shape, look, maybe put the holding, the player from deep line playmaker. I would change it personally. Now, maybe for using power shot, or you want them to be deep just enough to be in that position, okay, fine. But like, to be honest, just put up. I just think the way they're positioned, and at least defensively, they're better with holding. They're almost there in the right. They're not CDMs, but they're always there at the right place at the right time. The playmaker roaming, you can use either I would prefer playmaker attack. Roaming is like, unless you would know, but let's say, for example, run in with Neymar and you want Bonmati to take in that position on the wide area. Let's say you forced it there. If you brought Batch over here on in or something like that, then yeah. But I think, to be honest, leaving it on attack, because that way you've always got that, basically that 4 attack, and then of course you've got the 1 centre mid that's very attacking, supplementing it. And then when you lose the ball, you have the 5 at the back. So you have the 5 going forward, the 5 at the back, which keeps it very balanced. A lot of people struggle with the game already defensively. And of course, for pro players, it's different. But at least having one the players holding gives you that balance. And with this player, you can put whatever you want. But let's say you really wanted to put roaming, you can. The only benefit is that you have 2 centre mids. So at least it's not like a massive gap in midfield. You're going to have one that's here and one that's here. It's not like you have 1 centre mid here and 1 centre mid here, where this can be problematic if they split up. So at least you have some sort of balance in midfield is what I would say. But that is the only thing that I would say, and maybe 50 depth is fine, but maybe that's the only change that I would say. Where would I put this tactic and I would rate it? It'll be with all my others. I still like Diogo's 4-2-2. I like my 4-2-2. I like my 4-1-3-2. What I would say though is it's 4-2-1-3, so I always get that one messed up. There's one other tactics video that we need to record actually, but if I was gonna place it in this kind of layout, I think because I like 4-4-2s more, I would put it above my 4-1-3-2. I prefer Diogo's. Oh, it's a tough one. This formation is more of a balanced one, to be honest. Maybe this probably goes in the same tier as Diogo's. Unfortunately, I need to maybe create a different ranking system. But look, it'll be Diogo's here, and then maybe just under it will be TEKKZ's. I really like Diogo's tactics. I really do. But this one is more of a balance. I think for the average person, they may like this 4-4-2 better. So to be honest, it definitely is one of the top ones. To be honest, most variations of the 4-4-2s are very identical. All the pros are playing the same thing. Maybe one player's got this on balance, maybe one player hasn't. They're all very much the same. But they're all going to be top formations inside the game. But again, as I said to you, the lower skill you are, the more you'll struggle. In fact, maybe one other thing I would do is maybe put one of these players on a poacher. You might see me, I similarly do this on a lot of formations, is put one of these players on poacher. That way you got a balance of 2. So at least you got one player getting behind and one player's an advance forward. And you could always make those micro adjustments if you want to put them both on advance forward, or you want to go something like the false 9 territory, then be my guest. But that would review the TEKKZ tactics. Typical 4-4-2, one that we all know. And of course, it's the player that makes the formation, not the formation that makes the player.